Welcome back, folks. So we spent a considerable amount of time laying the context. Well, before we do that, let me stop the share. So what has happened is that a couple of weeks ago, there was a Zoom upgrade, and then that has changed the configuration somehow. The, the screen, the video that I used to share with the text got squished into the corner. So I'm having to resort to some other means. I'm still experimenting with this. So let us see how it goes in this session. Also, I had a request that um, if possible, we should make this Zoom sessions live. Generally, I record it at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Saturday. I don't know if there is uh, more interest. If people are interested in joining the Zoom sessions, we can figure out a time where we can have a live session. So having said that, in this new mode, I will be switching back and forth between the shlokas, the text that we want to understand and study, and the videos. So let me go back to the share. Well, okay, let me go back to the share. So we spent a considerable amount of time laying the context, setting the context for the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. We said that this is the considered to be the most important chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's also pretty long. There are about more than 70 verses in this chapter. And we explained that there is two things going on. It, at the very start of the Bhagavad Gita, when the Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya, he explains that Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta. He says there are two battles going on, and we are wherever possible trying to understand it in that light. So uh, we know that Arjuna has been laid over with this extremely difficult task of not just fighting, but taking the lives of people that he loves. And in the first chapter, there is a very elaborate discussion, explanation by Arjun about how difficult it is going to be for him. And that story continues for a little while in this second chapter. And it is that there is a one shloka in the beginning, second one, where Sri Krishna says something, and then it is not until the 11th shloka of this second chapter that the actual teachings of the Bhagavad Gita start. Till then, the story continues. We might speed through that a little bit. I'm not sure, maybe. Interestingly, Shankaracharya, who is the authority on Advaita, and his commentaries are some of the most profound and authentic for those who don't know. He incidentally skips over the first chapter, and then he too starts his commentary on the 11th one. There is another shlok that is extremely important in this chapter. When we get to it, I will make sure that we spend sufficient time on that one. Okay, so having said that, Arjuna at the end of the first chapter has been overwhelmed by pity, by compassion. He feels helpless, and he sets down his quiver of bows and arrows, and essentially he gives up fighting. That is the context. And we saw that in the elaborate context that we went through, that this also is a parallel for an aspirant who is struggling to understand the truth via a mechanism of meditation or some other process, a mental process. And it is a huge struggle for him. And he also, like Arjuna, sets down his tools that he uses in this struggle for concentration. And he questions the, the very value of the goal that he is trying to achieve here. If it does that even make sense? So Arjuna is now sitting down, laying down on the battlefield. That is where the second chapter picks up. So let me share the screen now with the verses. So the Sanskrit here, we know that vacha is something that well, I'm the wrong slide here. Let me go back to the first slide. The Sanskrit here, we know that it means that vacha means to say. So, you take a person's name XYZ, he says, but by now most of us know that. So Sanjaya vacha, that's what. So Sanjay, as we know, who is narrating whatever is happening on the battlefield to the blind king Dhritarashtra. So he has already narrated that Arjuna is sitting down there, and then he continues. Sanjaya vacha tam tatha kripayavishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishedantamidam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. As I had been saying in some of the earlier sessions, the Sanskrit words, they get joined together. So you have to break up the sandhis. So there is the tam tatha kripaya vishtam. And so Sanjaya says, tam tatha, unto this Arjuna. What kind of Arjuna? Tam tatha kripaya vishtam. Who is kripaya vishtam? Who is overwhelmed by compassion. Ashrupurna kulekshanam. Ashrupurna is his eyes, they are filled with tears. His eyes, they are filled with tears. He is crying. Ashrupurna kulekshanam. Ikshanam, his eyes. Ashru is with tears. And he's sitting down. Vishedantam. Idam vakyam. Lamenting. These words. Idam vakya. This. Idam is this. These. Idam vakyam. Vacha madhusudana. To such an Arjuna who is sitting down on this battlefield, crying, overwhelmed with compassion, and basically broken down, crumbled under stress. To such an Arjuna, Sri Krishna says. So what does he say? And this is an interesting point in this entire dialogue between Arjuna and Sri Krishna. So in this situation, what can Arjuna what can Sri Krishna say to Arjuna if one were to think about a similar situation? If one were to think about a similar situation in case of our own lives, there is an acquaintance, a friend of ours who is in dire straits. Something has happened to him. Maybe he's taking he, in his there's a class that he repeatedly keeps failing, or maybe he tried 2 or 3 times and he couldn't get through an exam, and he is frustrated and overwhelmed that I cannot pass this subject. And then he comes to you, and how do we address him? We want to put him at ease, right? He's very disturbed, and so we tell him that it's okay, you can keep trying, and I will help you out, or we can take somebody's help, and we'll build up your confidence, and we'll try, and we are not going to scold him. We are not going to yell at him. Generally, we will not do that. We'll try to soothe him. That's the situation. And one might expect, after all, Arjuna and Krishna are friends here. So one might expect that Sri Krishna would take that kind of attitude. But the next couple of verses that are there, some of the words that are used, they are the one of the most strongest words that are used in the entire Bhagwad Gita. If there was a bad word, foul word to be used in Sanskrit, those are the words that have been used in the next couple of verses. When Sri Krishna doesn't take it lightly, in fact, he expresses surprise, and it is more like there is a patient who is refusing to take a medicine, and the doctor is like, okay, uh, you can take it when you feel like. Instead of which, the doctor is saying, he gets hold of him and says, what are you crying? You have to take this medicine, because if you don't, this disease, whatever it is going to kill you. So that's, if it is a good doctor, then he will, whatever it takes, he will make sure that you take this medicine. A mediocre doctor would maybe tell the relatives, make sure he takes this medicine, and otherwise he will suffer. And doctor who is an ordinary doctor, he will just say, okay, I will leave the medicine here, you take it if you want, otherwise it's your own destiny. But Sri Krishna is the highest kind of doctor. So let's go to our screen share and on to our next verse. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. So that's how Sri Krishna has been addressed in the entire Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna will be called by many names, and Sri Bhagavan is basically referring to him as God. So Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Last time it was Sanjay Vacha, and we have seen Arjuna Vacha in the first chapter. Now here it is Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam anaryajushtamasvarkyam akirtikaram Arjuna. At this point, we don't know if Arjuna was expecting Sri Krishna to console him or anything, but he would have been somewhat surprised. Actually, there is, let me go back to the previous verse for just a moment. Here, tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishedantam idam vakyam vacha madhusudanaha. Vishedantam idam vakyam. Vishedantam is that he the Sri Krishna actually he is not explaining, but he is not taking a consoling view of Arjuna. So that part where Sri Krishna is, he's at some point he is actually smiling a bit when he is addressing Arjuna. So Sri Bhagavan Vacha, we went over this. Kutastva kashmalam. Kuta is where from. Kutastva kashmalamidam. This kind of kashmala is impurity, dirtiness. It is a more, it's used in a, we can treat it as in a metaphoric sense. This uncleanliness, your pure mind, how has it got sullied like this? Kutastva kashmalamidam idam this. Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam. In this hour of crisis, how has this weakness entered your mind? Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam anarya ajust anarya justam asvargyam akirtikaram arjuna. So these are all like negative anarya, unlike an arya. Anarya justam asvargyam. Asvargyam means you would do deeds or things that would take you to uh, take you to heaven. Now there is a little bit of Vedic karma kanda here. Most of the Vedas, there is a lot of rituals and karma kanda, and like in other religions, you would do karmas, so that good deeds, so that after death you will be taken to heaven. So that's the intention of almost all the rituals that you do. There are obviously different kinds of goals that are there, but this is one of them. So if you want to have a son, there is a yajna. If you want to, if you are praying for rains, there is a yajna. So this basically the whole idea is that you lead your life so that in such a way that you will end up in heaven. And this is not what you are doing, Arjun. You are not going to end up in heaven. Aswargyam, akirtikaram. Akirti. Kirti is famous. Well, I mean, not that Arjuna is attempting to become famous or anything, but by what he's doing now, he'll definitely become infamous. Akirtikaram Arjuna. Kutastva kashmalamidam. Vishame samupasthitam. Anaryajushtamasvargyam. Akirtikaram Arjuna. Okay, let's move to the next verse. Now, this is what I was saying, that this is some of the harshest words that have been used in the Bhagwad Gita. And Arjuna is definitely trying to knock some serious sense into Arjuna. He's using extremely strong language here. I suppose his body language also must be betraying and spilling out some of that. And one would think, like I mentioned earlier, that you would console him, but that's not what he's doing. Klaibya is impotent. This is a very strong word that he's using. He's like, what kind of a warrior are you? You are an impotent person. You are displaying the behavior of an impotent person, a warrior of your like. It is so very contradictory to the kind of personality that you have. All this study that you have been doing, all this hard work, all this practice of warfare you have been doing, this is the time when you are supposed to use that, and at this time when you're supposed to use it, you are displaying this kind of behavior. Klaipyam asmagam partha nayatatva upapadyate. This does not befit you. Oh, Arjuna, this kind of behavior, it does not befit you. Kshudram hridaya daurabalyam tyaktvottishta param tapa. Give up. Give up this weakness of heart. Tyaktva. Tyaktva is to give up. Give up weakness of heart, O Arjuna. Rise up. Awake. Rise up and fight. Tyaktvottishta param. Let me just go. Let me share it back again, just to finish the verse. I think, it's going to take me a little while before I get used to this sharing thing. So I might figure out some other way, but at least at the moment. Kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta param tapa. Give up, set aside this weakness of your mind. He's shaking him up. Like I have been saying, very, very strong words he's using. Now, this point in the life of Arjuna, and indeed in the entire Mahabharata, it marks the turning point. Because if Arjuna were to have not fought at this point, Arjuna is the ace warrior. He is the spear that the Pandava army Yudhishthir has, that everybody knows can destroy the Kaurava army. And if that itself is rendered not useful, unusable, that is it. Then the Pandavas have lost the war. And in the parlance of our analogy, the Advaita philosophy declares that there is this goal, the highest goal that there is, that man can achieve in life. It does not say that if you are not able to achieve this goal, then you can try this. If you don't become a doctor, then you can become an engineer or you can become a scientist. It doesn't say that. In fact, they are very emphatic, and they say that if there is anything to be achieved, then there is this and there is nothing else. I mentioned in the last time that in most Upanishads it is there, but especially not especially, I just mentioned a slok, a piece of the slok in the Kenopanishad. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. That's this Brahman, and we are going to see a lot of it. But from a Advaita standpoint, there is nothing that is equivalent to that goal. It's a very, very lofty ideal, but there is no other option. There's no alternative. That is the only path of freedom. And so Shri Krishna will do whatever it takes to put him on this path. He has to shake him up. It's like if somebody is having a nightmare and he's weeping in his bed, and he's having some very terrible visions in his nightmare. Somebody is using a sword and and they are trying to kill this person, and they're forcing the sword through his intestine, and he is in great pain. And so this other person who is standing by the bedside watching him, this guy who is running his nightmare, he tries his level best to wake him up. It's like, this is what you are going through is not the case. You need to wake up and see, which is exactly what Sri Krishna is attempting to do here. Like, the story continues on for a little while. We are going to see that, but because it's a story, we are going to go through it a little bit faster. Okay. Arjuna Uvacha. Now Arjuna answers to Sri Krishna. And this is kind of, you will see the pattern here. This continues from the first chapter. Arjuna Uvacha Katham Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronancha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyotsyami Pujarhavari. Arjuna says, how do you expect me to return, to shoot arrows at none other than Bhishmacharya, who is my beloved grandsire? How do you expect me to shoot arrows at him? Katham Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronancha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyotsyami Pujarhavari. Arisudana is another name for Krishna. How do you expect me to fight with Bhishma and to use my arrows to return Ishubhi Pratiyotsyami? It is to counterattack with arrows. I cannot fight with Bhishma. We saw in the first chapter he has given all kinds of reasons, and really from a layman perspective and from a common man perspective, his reasoning is pretty sound actually. One might feel that when you take an eagle's where a bigger picture view, that you begin to see that Arjuna's logic doesn't fit well in the larger picture. But at an individual level, you might find that what he's saying is reasonable. And we saw that in the analogy, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, two battles are going on. So we are always going to analyze this in two perspectives. So we see that in this Vedantic pursuit of this highest goal, there are these, you want to take care of your family. So you are studying for some exam, and then you want to put in as much effort as you can to clear this subject. And then you have got somebody calling you, go and get this from the, from the market, go and get these vegetables, and or warm up this coffee for me, or something. They ask you to do something, some chore you have to run, some errands you have to run, some chore you have got to do. You are not going to do that because you are focused on, you don't have much time. You are under stress. You have to study for this exam. So now somebody is not well in your home and you got to get medicine. Now that is a dire need. So you basically are improvising here. You are prioritizing things. There are 15 distractions that come to your mind, and you set them aside. You say, I'm not going to do this because I'm involved in something more important here. And this is kind of what is being tackled here, where there are those chores, those tasks that are easy for us to say are a distraction. But then we enter this gray area where you cannot differentiate. You cannot figure out, whether I should be doing or not. And sometimes a point comes that you stop your study that you're doing for the exam and you get out of your room and you get that task done. And you have to take a call here. You have to call the shot. I'm doing this or am I doing that? I can't do both. You have to do one of them. You can't do both. And you have got this foresight, or somebody tells you that this exam that you're studying for, that is the only thing you worry about. Don't worry about anything else. Everything else will fall in place. So that is kind of where in every aspect, in every kind of situation in life, if you ponder on it carefully, you will find that it somehow or the other is captured in the Mahabharata and the Bhagwad Gita. And you can see that Arjuna, and then this is where the value of the Bhagwad Gita is immense. It's invaluable. It's pure gold. The things that it tell you, you got this. Who is going to tell you these things that what is the right thing to do here? So once you begin to clear the shaft and see what is inside, you uh, it's a wonderful text. We realize how wonderful of a text it is. Okay, so let me share the screen again. So we just went over Arjuna Vacha Katham Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronancha Madhusudana. Bhishma and Drona, he's talking about. Ishubhi Pratiyotsyami Pujarha Varisudana. So because of the screen sharing business, sometimes I'm not able to read it, the verse, and then so I'm reciting them out of memory. So you might find some inconsistencies sometimes, but we should be able to get around it. Again, it is same kind of story repeating here. Guru na hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva bhunjeya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan. The kind of things that Arjuna is referring, he is really, and like I said, from a common man perspective, they sound valid, but he's really reaching out for straws. He's pulling out all the things that can possibly happen and how they are going to hit him very, very badly in his emotional side of his personality. This is a battle going on between the head and the heart. It's an emotional battle, and on the one, he has been asked to perform his duty, which is dharma. Dharma is a tricky word. It is dharma is means in the context. Let me just move this around. You are not able to see it because I'm not sharing the screen, so I can see the text here. So dharma is, depending on the context, it can take on different meanings. So Arjuna's dharma in this case is to fight. If he does anything other than that, it is adharma. So that is very clear that is what is happening in the Bhagavad Gita. But dharma can take up other meanings as well. It also means the nature of things. So the dharma of fire is to burn. This is a extremely important point. We are going to see why. Shankaracharya uses it. He is so brilliant. The way he uses this metaphor later on to explain the nature of the universe. It is very astounding, very striking, stunning. His brilliance, the way he sheds light on it. So here, Arjuna is a Kshatriya. His nature is to fight, and he has to fight. So in both the context of dharma, he will not be doing the right thing by not fighting. So when we are studying for this test that we mentioned earlier, our dharma is to fight. See, I had mentioned this earlier, that it is strange that in a religious book, which in general religion talks about peace and love and honesty and harmony and all that, to talk about killing and this warfare, it is so very unreligious. Why you general religious books will stay away from even the most violent of religions will not have this in their religious books. And here he is talking about fighting, but we need to look behind the scenes. This is a different kind of fight we are talking about here. This is fighting against the distraction. So when you have set your mind on something that's right, if you set your mind on something that's not right, well, obviously we don't want that. That's not what is, although this kind of this techniques that we are talking about would obviously bear fruit in that sense too, which we don't want. So let me share this again. Guru Nahat. Guru is the, it means teacher, but in general, all of these Dronacharya, Bhishmacharya, Krupacharya, they have all been in some form or the other teachers to Arjuna. Guru na hatva. Guru hatva is to kill. So Arjuna is saying here, Guru na hatva hi mahanu bhav is great souls. That there might be certain people in your life who you worship, generally they are religious people, but they don't have to be. It could be somebody who is a very socially, like a Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela. I don't know, some figure that you find is larger than life, like Martin Luther King, or it doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but obviously this is revolving around a religion, so you could have some. I'm deliberately don't want to bias this talk as something specific to a religion. That is the beauty of Advaita and the Sanatana Dharma here. They don't ask you to follow a certain god. You can pick what you want. They just ask you to try and understand the truth behind this whole universe, this whole world. That's what they are asking you. There is a extremely popular statement by Swami Vivekananda. Every soul is potentially divine. The aim is to manifest this divinity within. Do it by work, by religion, by work, by one or more of all of these. This is the whole of a religion. How wonderfully he has put it in words here. In that there is a lot of Advaita books, text, and all that. There are 108 Upanishads. There are more, but 108 are considered to be important, out of which 10 are the most important from a Advaita standpoint. But all these are summed up in just 3 words. There are 4 Mahavakyas. You can pick in just one of them. But you don't need to know all these things. If you want to fight with a big army, you need tanks and weapons and armory and machine guns and pistols and people and whatnot. But if somebody wants to take his own life, he just needs a small blade. That is enough for him. You don't need all this whole army, this paraphernalia of things. you need to know the one essential thing. So this one Brahma Vakya, Tattvamasi, that it it covers everything. So the whatever has been explained, this goal that is there, in order to reach that goal, we have to find out things that are distracting, and we have to address them. Guru na hatva hi mahanubhavan. Mahanubhav, these great teachers. For me, let me finish this verse. Guru na hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhikshamapi haloke. Shreya is it is better for me to bhokta is to enjoy. It's if I translate this into English, it kind of doesn't sound right, but it means bhoktum. Bhiksha is to beg. It's saying like I would rather enjoy begging. If you translate it literally, it means that I would rather enjoy begging than to kill my gurus and my these pious people, Mahanubhav, Guru and Mahanubhav. Rather than killing them, I would rather be begging. I would prefer to beg. So basically what he says is that by killing these people, if I'm going to gain a kingdom, a luxurious kingdom, and have all kinds of wealth, I don't know. We saw all this thing in the first chapter, so the story continues. Guru na hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhikshamapi haloke hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva bhunjeya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan. Rudhira is blood. So he says that hatvartha kamanstu guru, hatva is to kill. If I were to kill this, and this whatever I will gain out of that, it will be stained by the blood. It will be tainted by the blood of these people. How do you expect me to enjoy this? So he is having this myopic vision. He is not looking at the big picture, but it's something that happens to all of us. You want to confront a person for something that he may not have done right, or you disagree with him. Especially this can happen between spouses. You want to clear out, there's one topic that is especially, there's a thorn in your side that you want to address, and you prepare elaborately in your mind. It's like you go to a court of law and you prepare yourself. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. If he says this, I'll say that. If this, that. So you, in your mind, you play it out a dozen times, 20 times you play it out. And, or even for a job interview, you go. And things don't play out like that, right? You go there, and when the topic comes up, let's say that at least you stick to the topic. Many times something else starts, the topic is left behind. For you go there thinking that this is a very important topic that needs to be discussed, and something else gets discussed, and this topic just doesn't even come up for discussion. But you want to discuss the topic, you take it, and with all these things that you have prepared, you get into this heated debate and argument, and you end up saying something silly. All the things that you prepared, there might be 50 things that you had in mind that you would say. Maybe you said 2 out of that. And then you actually, because your mind has been hijacked now by the emotional situation that has taken over, you are no longer using reason. It's more reflex action, and later on you might ponder over, why I should not have said this and that. So that's kind of Arjuna is taking a myopic view here. Given understood that the situation Arjuna is in is a very, very unique situation. Who of us can imagine that we are called upon the battlefield and we are asked to kill our own relatives? Who of us can imagine and understand that we are going through? On the we very, very rare. Even if there is such an individual, there might be one or two of them. But on the other hand, if we look at our analogy of we are using this Kurukshetra is taking place in the mind, and we are using this to focus on something, and then things that are close, dear to us, they start popping up. I'm studying for this exam, and my favorite uncle is calling me, asking me to give him something, and I need to shut him down. Or my favorite tea or coffee, or something like that. It comes up. Somebody is selling ice cream. I love it most, and it comes up. You have to chop down. Now, this is kind of the easy things, but there are some that every individual has got some kind of build up. Sometimes you know that you are attached to a certain things. Sometimes you don't even know. And this is kind of one of the interesting things that you will come across in the Vedanta texts, that when somebody intellectually and wants focuses, pursues, you can call it meditation if you want, but you are trying to focus on some mental idea, and you want to eradicate the noise around it. If you make a hypothetical case and are asked, we are running way over time now, but let me finish this thought. If you take a hypothetical case and you are asked, you want to, you want to focus on a certain thing. What are the kind of um, distractions that will come to your mind? What are the things that you are attached to that you think will come to your mind? And you can make a list of this, that I think this will happen, that will happen, and you can take some steps for that to not happen. And you might list down 100 things. But when we actually do that exercise, you will find that there are other very powerful forces that we didn't even take into account. That first and foremost, this is very difficult to track them. Where the mind, it is so, the word that is chanchal, is so active, it's very, very difficult to track. That in itself is a feat if you are able to do that. But one will discover that there are things that we had not even thought about. Okay, let me just finish this verse off so we can start with the next verse next time. Guru na hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhikshamapi haloke hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva bhunjeya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan. So he says that I would rather take up begging than kill my gurus. And even if I were to kill them, how can I enjoy the things that would have been stained by their blood? Okay, I will conclude the session here, and I will see how this video turns out to be, and it will take me a couple of sessions before I think this might get streamlined. And if I hear more about anybody interested in the live thing, then I can figure out some time and we can have a live Zoom session. Okay, thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, bye.